calcia, وضربة مروجة والجول.
Goes on. Oh, it's a beautiful finish. Volleyed in by Bruno Guimaraes.
It is Kieran Trippier. It is Nicholas. Glorious. Trippier Delph. It's forward towards Wilson. 3-0.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast and the Evermore YouTube channel. We're having a bit of a special one for this one, guys. It's World Cup fever, so we're doing a little bit of a World Cup podcast. So we're going to get stuck in a minute. I've got two internationally capped superstars alongside me tonight. I've got the main man, Audie, who's, yes, he's still dressed as a cup final manager there with his tie, looking good, bringing some style to the show, and bringing some youthful exuberance, the blue tick man. And he didn't pay for it either. The blue tick man is back with us. How are we doing, lads?
Doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, doing all right, mate. Cheers.
Fantastic. Well, even though I'm Scottish, I'm quite looking forward to this, guys. I think we've been having a good chat off camera. Yeah, I have picked a decent England 11, I think, but we had a good chat off camera. We must say Mark was supposed to be on with us tonight, but bless him, he's had a bit of man flu. So man down. So give Mark the love in the comments, guys, because we are live as always. So drop Mark a get well soon, and hopefully he'll be back soon enough. But he has been tinkering behind the scenes with his England team as well, which hopefully we'll have a chance to pull up for you. Just before we do a little bit of housekeeping, if you haven't already, please click the like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We're on about 2,067 subscribers now. So we've had another couple of you subscribe from this morning for me moaning about Ronaldo. So I hope you enjoyed that one. Loads of free content here. Smash the button. We don't charge anybody for this. Obviously, it's World Cup, so it's slightly different to the normal Evermore program list, but we're just trying to keep you guys entertained with a little bit of Newcastle United banter over the World Cup. And then as soon as that's over, we'll be straight back with the usual Evermore. And as I said, we're live tonight, guys. As always, jump in the comments. A couple you already have. New Monkeys in the house. How you doing, mate? And Roger is there as well. So let's get stuck in, lads. So what we decided to do for this episode was to pick our England Newcastle 1 to 11. So just to explain to everybody who's watching, that's basically players who have played for England and Newcastle. They didn't have to necessarily be at the same time. So we've picked a 1 to 11 of the players that we think would make our England Newcastle 1 to 11. So blue tick man, I'm going to start with you. Talk us through your 1 to 11, Bonnie lad. There it is.
There we are. It is quite attacking, if I'm very honest. There's not a lot of defensive stability in there. I mean, that's probably why I've put Rob Lee in. But even then, again, Rob Lee certainly could go forward and score a goal. But I'll start with the goalkeeper, Nick Pope. Pretty much picks itself, I think.
A given, really, mate. Have we had any other keeper that had an England cap? I don't think we have we?
Two.
Who's that?
Audie? Let's hear it.
One from like the 1910s, who I can't remember his name, who played twice for England. I think it was while he was in Newcastle, maybe only once. And then the only other person we could have picked was Dave Besant, who obviously played for us and then had 2 England appearances in 89-90. But yeah, that would have been it.
So
way before your time, Dan. Even mine, possibly.
Just a little bit. Just a little
bit. Go on, mate. Keep it.
So realistically, Nick Pope picks himself, and I think so does Kieran Trippier. I mean, this is a man who's been in a World Cup semi-final with England, a European Championship final with England, of course, scored in that World Cup final against Croatia, stunning free kick, which we're all very used to. Jonathan Woodgate, well, I mean, he was a little. I mean, I was alive when he was playing for Newcastle, and I was aware. This is going to get all. Look how young he is.
I love that. I was alive when Woodgate played. That's class. I love that.
But I was perhaps a bit too young to understand at the point. But from what I hear and from what I've seen, a lot of people rate him very highly as a centre back. Obviously, went off to Real Madrid. Injuries hampered him as well. Stuart Pearce left back, psycho.
Good job.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's sort of one where who else would you really put in that left-back slot, to be honest? Obviously, missed that penalty in Italia 90, but then had redemption in Euro 96 against Spain. Steve Howie, I'll be honest, I was not sure how else to put in centre-half. Sorry if Steve's watching.
Hey, he's great on podcasts, though, Dan. If you've ever listened to some of these stories he's covered out with, he's brilliant on the podcast.
Man. Yeah, he is. I've spoken to Steve a few times on Radio Newcastle, and you know what, Steve, you were part of the entertainers, so you deserve to be in this team. Anyway, we're getting to midfield. Obviously, as I mentioned at the start, Rob Lee is sitting deep for me. We'll need to provide a bit of defensive cover considering who we've got a bit higher up the pitch. But again, yeah, just a little bit of a sweeper, but more of maybe a box to box if you had the legs. Going forward, though, I mean, Chris Waddle speaks for himself. You know, great on the ball, great feet. Same with Peter Beardsley. Then you've got Paul Gascoigne, who for me was England's best ever player. Is that a controversial one? I can't really.
No, I don't think I'll disagree, mate. I think Odie will get stuck in his team in a minute, but I can't see anybody disagree.
I would say, I mean, obviously, perhaps, the stats might not back that up, but I think in terms of natural talent and ability, and actually what he did in Italia 19 Euro 96, I think it's hard to disagree, to be honest.
On stats, Dan, just on the stats on Gaza, just because Mark is here in spirit. So for Gaza, England was 1988 to 1998, 57 caps and 10 goals from midfield. Obviously, World Cup 1990 semi-final and Euro 96 semi-final, mate. So it does back you up.
It does, and then when you watch sort of the highlights reel of his, you just sort of see how naturally gifted he was on the ball. And so I think he was a shoe-in for me. And then up front, we've got Alan Shearer, speaks for itself. Euro 96 Golden Boot winner, also scored a couple in World Cup 98 and Euro 2000. And then I've gone with Malcolm McDonald. Now, he played for England at a time when England actually weren't doing that well in the mid-70s, didn't really qualify for any World Cups in 78 or 74. But was it that 5-0 win? Was it against Cyprus?
It was. He got 5, didn't he? Well, he's got 14 caps and 6 goals, but 5 came in one game. To be fair, big Superback.
Indeed, yeah. Now, so perhaps his England record, apart from the 2 games in which he scored, isn't the best. But I just think this was a period where England weren't doing so well. But for Newcastle, he was phenomenal. So that's why I've got him in, just for that pace and presence up front alongside Alan Shearer. And that is my team. I could have had a bench, to be fair. There's honourable mentions. You could put Callum Wilson on that bench, for example. A few others, but that would be my team.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Dan, I mean, you're looking at the players there. I mean, it's a cracking side, in all fairness, mate. It's interesting. I think, we were talking off camera, and we'll probably have some commonalities, I think, between our sides. There's some real left field choices as well, as Odie smirking there in a minute. We'll get stuck into this in a minute. But I mean, looking at some of them players there, obviously we talked about, Gaza's stats there, mate. I mean, Shearer's stats, I think it's pretty much a given. Shearer probably getting most of our sides, I think. But Shearer got between 1992 to 2000, 30 goals in 63 caps, and he obviously retired early, which for us as Newcastle, I think benefited us, Lance, didn't it? Or do you remember that back in the day when Shearer jacked England in for us, mate?
Yeah, I think his son was born, and he made the announcement just roughly when his son was born to say he didn't think his body would hold up to doing international football as well. I think the other thing about Shearer that we forget, because he wasn't playing for us at the time, is I think it was 92, 93 or 93, 94. He did his cruciate the first time at Blackburn. And that was during, I think, World Cup qualifying for 94. And Graham Taylor, I'm sure it was Taylor, said he's still adamant that had he had a fit Alan Shearer, that England would have qualified for World Cup 94. I mean, that was probably
going to be fair, because he wasn't fit at that point either.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say about Euro 92. When I was going to get on to it when we discussed, but Euro 92, obviously Gaza probably. That could have been the tournament where he stepped on even further, but I think he was still recovering, wasn't he, from the...
He broke his leg from that FA Cup final, didn't he? I mean, to be honest, I love Gaza, but that was still one of the stupidest things I've ever seen that. But when you watch a Gaza documentary and you hear what he was going through, you kind of understand why he flipped his lid a little bit.
Yeah, but also does that not, and this is maybe going to be harsh, but does that not also bear badly on Venables that he's prepared to put somebody out there to play in the FA Cup semi-final? I don't know whether, Dan, people might have seen this clip on YouTube or younger, but I remember watching it. He scored that free kick, and he's getting interviewed on the pitch afterwards.
Yeah,
and he's off his box. He's got so much adrenaline running around that he's about to go to the FA Cup final.
Measured, as he said.
Yes,
just not a bad start, was it? And then he runs off.
Just to interrupt, Canada have got a penalty against Belgium.
Oh my God, this World Cup is an absolute coupon buster, mate. Let's just see how this goes in before we get stuck into some of the comments here as well. There's an interesting comment from Zoe's Media we're going to pull up in a minute. I think it might not be one player, certainly. I don't think got a cap, actually, which is quite controversial, even though we don't like him. Go on, Dan, is the pen?
Alphonso Davies of Canada to take. Canada are managed by a Geordie, aren't they?
He's from Durham, yeah. He used to be the women's manager.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's good to see, though, isn't it? Is Alphonso Davies, is he the lad that plays for, is it Bayern Munich or something?
Bayern Munich, he plays for.
I thought he was,
He's a fullback.
He's the star man, isn't he?
He is, yes.
This is Dan Wales's BBC audition, this.
Yeah. To be fair, Roger's got a good point there about Gaza. No mental health support there. Absolutely,
Yeah, there
Roger.
wasn't.
I think that was terrible by the game back then. Gaza definitely. I mean, you watch that documentary if you have this on the BBC.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this before one time when we've mentioned about Gaza, but or maybe it was on something else. But
saved.
Saved. Oh, get it. Belgium's still in the game.
I'm sure there's a story that when Gaza was about 16, 17, he was in charge of some other people's kids, and one of them ran out in front of
that is
car.
True. That's in the documentary film.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, he said.
A lot of people said he was never the same person afterwards, and he took that so badly that he was never the same person afterwards.
Yes, I mean, definitely a fracture. I mean, what a talent, but a fractured life, absolutely. So Zoe's media, I'll probably take this one, lads. So doesn't Steve Bruce and Michael Carrick count? I know that have played for Newcastle, but still Geordie's. Yeah, Bruce didn't get a cap, did he? That was very controversial.
No,
he was probably, I mean, forget about Bruce the manager. Please, God, forget about Bruce the manager. But Bruce the player was probably one of the best centre-halves at that time in English football. He couldn't get a sniff, could he? Couldn't get in.
But he was probably only the second best centre-half of Man United because he probably wasn't as good as Gary Pallister.
Pallister had the pace, didn't he? To pull Bruce out of shite, maybe. So that's why
he scored a lot of goals. To be fair to him, didn't he? He often got on the score.
He did.
But
he did.
They also didn't that 1990 team have Parker at right back, who was and like Pallister then got into the team after that. I think
it was Tony Adams. He couldn't get around. Tony Adams, Keogh, and couldn't get past.
That was the other thing I was going to say, which when we come on to my team,
was in Liverpool, he couldn't get past him.
Yeah. Like there was just too many players who were considered at that time to be top level defenders, which is harsh. But I suppose it was a similar situation. We talked about Euro '96, and we've mentioned about Shearer, and I think you mentioned Dan about Psycho getting redemption at Euro '96. But I think going into that tournament, you had Shearer, Ferdinand, Fowler, Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham,
Letitius and all. Letitius was on the periphery.
I think you had 7 or 8 people who you could have made an argument for. Ian Wright, you had 7 or 8 players you could have make an argument for going as the centre forward.
Robbie Fowler was on fire, as I remember. There was loads of media pressure to drop Shearer for Fowler, wasn't there? He couldn't. Venable stayed true to him. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, England have had some great players over the years. Just trying to get them all to work together.
England have often had the players
to
go further than they ever have done.
How they didn't win with that goal.
Luckily, Gareth solved that problem in the last 2 tournaments.
Still not there yet, mate. Still not there. It's only Iran. It's only Iran. Goodness sake. We'll not start that. We'll not start the Scottish and English fight. And I'll have Nicola Sturgeon popping up on the link telling me to get back up the road in a minute. So let's get stuck into Audie's team then. So Audie, this is your lineup. So some controversial choices here, mate. Be interesting to see what the comments are from the viewers. So run us through your side, mate.
Well, like Dan, I couldn't really think, apart from Besant, and he only got 2 caps. I couldn't really think of anybody else who would be in that. And Besant was so appallingly bad for us that I couldn't really pick him. So Nick Pope, as Dan said, pretty much picks himself. I've got Johnny Woodgate in there as well. I'm a little bit older than Dan. Hard to believe to look at us both, but don't
know what you're on about.
Johnny, 6 months.
Johnny Woodgate
6 months already. 6 months old.
Yeah, Johnny Woodgate is probably still at the moment the best centre half I've seen play for Newcastle. And when fit was absolutely incredible. That first UEFA Cup semi-final against Marseille, Drogba barely got a sniff. And I still think had Woodgate been fit and not injured himself playing against Chelsea the following weekend, I still think we would have had a decent chance of beating Marseille and going to the UEFA Cup final. Next to him, I've got Sol Campbell, not for his performances for Newcastle, but I think you'd struggle to find in that period of 98, 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006, you'd struggle to find a better centre-half in the world than Sol Campbell at that time. And he was part of that Arsenal team that went to the Champions League final in 2006 against Argentina, and I think against Portugal. He scored goals that were ruled out that would have seen England through in extra time. And really good, rock-solid defender, but also good in the air. Psycho at left back, I agree.
Fast as well, Audie. He got
73
caps.
And they're really strong, difficult to get round. Later on in his career, more difficult to get round, but for other reasons. But Stuart Pearce, like I say, you're struggling really at left back. I could have put Trips at left back because I've bundled him out of right back to put in Frank Hudspeth. Now, some people might be like, what on earth is he doing? But no outfield player played more games for Newcastle United than Frank Hudspeth. Along with Billy McCracken, he played for the team for 19 years.
We've got the stats here, Odie. I've got the stats. So from 1910 to 1929, Frank Hudspeth played for us. 472 appearances, 37 goals, and he played for England once in 1925. That's the only time he played for England.
He lost 4 years to the war, to be fair to him. But Frank Hudspeth scored 25 penalties, I think, out of his 37 goals. He was captain of the team for Newcastle team for 4 years. And he only was demoted when Gallagher demanded to be made captain or asked for a transfer. And then Hughie took over as captain, and he was part of the team that won our last league title in 1927. So I don't know, before people ask, I've never seen him play. But
PK has. Oh, you asked PK.
There's only
he's
6
seen him play.
in you, Odie. Like, there's no way you could have seen him play.
But
can't have seen him play.
But I think we've got to be at the time, obviously, to play at any stage really, to play nearly 500 outfield games for football clubs, an unbelievable effort. So I've got him in just for that. Yes, probably Kieran Trippier would be my choice, but I wanted to put at least one person in who's semi-controversial. In midfield, I've gone even more attacking than Dan. I've taken my hero Robert Lee out and ignored any forward defensive midfield because Beardo will just pour forward. So Waddle, Gaza, and Beardsley in midfield, and then Shearer up front. Yeah, we've mentioned him. Jackie Milburn, who for some reason has got 2 L's on there. Jackie Milburn, 13 caps, 10 goals. Had loads of competition to be the main centre forward through Nat Lofthouse, Tom Taylor, all of them who were around at the same time as him, who stopped him maybe getting more appearances for England. Finney, Matthews as part of the forward line. But 13 caps and 10 goals is an incredible record in its national level.
Incredible record, mate. Absolutely.
And I don't think anyone can question him as a man who scored in 2 of the 3 of the FA Cup finals in the 50s. And then the one that's probably going to cause the most debate. I'm going to be honest. I struggled with this one because I really did consider putting Andy Cole in.
We've got a shout for Andy Cole. The comments actually by Zoe's house. Yeah.
And I'll be honest with Zoe's media's house. The reason I didn't is because I never felt Andy Cole showed anything like his potential for England.
No, never.
That he showed at club level. And he's fallen in that gap of players who really played well within a club system, but maybe for whatever reason didn't make the step up. On the flip side of that, we've got a player who just seemed born to play international football. And
more interested in it than playing for his club, actually, or if memory serves.
Yeah, probably. I've got to say, when he first arrived back in Newcastle, what's often overlooked is until he broke his foot against Spurs.
Broke his metatarsal against Paul Robinson. Yeah,
he had a goal record that was better than 1 and 2 for us at that time. For that first 3 or 4 months he played for us, he was never the same player after 2006. No. That's not he should never have gone that World Cup. And he shouldn't have played in it.
He lost 2 yards, didn't he? I think he lost 2 yards of pace.
I just don't think he was ever the same type of player. He couldn't do the things that he'd wanted to do. Keegan almost got the best out of him that season we went down by dropping. Sorry, the season we just stayed up, dropping in the hole behind Viduka and Martins because he was clever enough to be able to time his runs and things a bit better. But I don't think you can argue with. He scored. I can't remember how many it was. You'll have the stats, Chris. But I think it was 40 goals for England. Maybe.
Michael Owen played for England for 1998, 2008, 89 caps, 40 goals. For a long time, he was way ahead of everybody else. For a long time.
Not quite as good a goals per game record as Shearer, but then he'd probably say Shearer took penalties and he didn't. But I mean, for his impact alone in World Cup in '98, World Cup 2002, I've never celebrated an England goal quite the way I did Michael Owen putting us 1-0 up against Brazil. I was about to go in and sit me A-level economics exam actually that afternoon. But he's a brilliant. I did actually. I think one of my honourable mentions, Dan, was the same as yours, Super Mac. Great performances, but rather like Michael Owen, injuries probably ended his career for kicking on in the way that it possibly should do. But I don't think anyone can argue Michael Owen's impact for England as opposed to his impact for Newcastle.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, you're looking at the record speaks for itself, as you say there. I'm quite liking Mark. Mark sent me a little spreadsheet here underneath. He loves a spreadsheet, Mark, and he's got notable footnotes on, 1996 semi-final, Ballon d'Or winner for some players, and he's just got Michael Owen, dullest man on earth. So it's a brilliant one by Mark there. I'm just trying to not laugh my head off as you were talking about Owen.
Don't worry, mate. He'll send you a brochure if you want to sign him.
Yeah, well, of course he will. But I think the thing with Michael Owen, you're right, though. I mean, strip back what we think about him as a Newcastle fan base for a minute. Before he come here and when he was first on the England scene, you're right, Audie, he was electric, man. Nobody could get near. I think next to probably Ronaldo, R9, and maybe even Torres when he burst through, I don't think there was anybody as exciting in world football up front as Michael Owen. Dan, it was a bit before your time, kind of the earlier ages of you know, but you remember what Owen was like prior to Newcastle. You saw the clips. Yeah, you saw the clips, mate. He was electric, man.
I can remember Michael Owen at Newcastle because he was the first player who I had in the back of Newcastle top.
No, he broke your heart. He broke your dreams.
I can remember there was one game, and I want to say it was maybe Hullett's first game in charge, where Liverpool, I think, won 4-1.
Oh, he scored 4.
Owen scored 4 goals, and he scored 3 of them. Yeah, and he did that little celebration.
Yeah,
and they were 3-0 up after about 17 minutes, and he'd got all 3 of them. Yeah. We could not get near him.
That was the season right after he scored that goal, because everybody was thinking, what's he going to be like when he comes back? Is he peaked? Is he going to be? And then he started against us, and he was just unbelievable.
Good quiz question. Who scored our goal that day?
Stefan Givash.
Stefan Givash. Yeah,
see, I remember.
Fresh from his World Cup medal polishing.
Dan's going, who? Who?
Stefan Givash.
World Cup winner, Dan. So, Dan, just, I mean, on Audie's team there, mate, what you take? There's some similarities to some players you picked. Controversial ones as well. I'm not going to ask you about Frank Hudspeth, mate, because that threw me and all when I read that when he said that through as well, mate. But what's your thoughts on Audie's side, mate?
I think it's really good. I think it's really very good. I mean, as I say, there's not a lot of defensive, balance in that team at all.
World football, mate. Who needs to defend?
It's a very sort of Kevin Keegan style in the sense that where if you score 3, we will score 4 sort of thing.
I love it, mate. I think he's done it well.
But yeah, to be fair, there's a lot of pace in that team as well. There's a lot of trickery, a lot of skill. So as far as goals galore, might be a few leaked in at the back, but
not with Campbell and Woodgate there, mate. Not with Campbell and Woodgate.
Fair enough. Yeah, Chris, I'm sure when we went to yours have a look. But I think both mine and Audie so far.
You know what? Steve Howie, Dan, should be delighted that he's been considered in the same company there as like the likes of Sol Campbell and Johnny Woodgate.
I think so. Yeah. I think he's made it.
I think he was how he was like actually incredibly unlucky in that at the time when I think he was first coming through to get England recognition, he just kept getting injured. Yeah, and I'm sure Hullett was saying that he was one of the most proficient ball playing defenders that he's ever seen, but that he could just never pick him because he just couldn't stay fit long enough. I think he got injured against Spurs in the FA Cup semi-final at Old Trafford and missed the FA Cup final against Man United because of that. So I think that was kind of the knock-on effect of that. But yeah,
I love that story about Steve Howie. Just before we move on to my side, I think I heard at one of the podcasts he did. Brilliant. He's really good value for money. And he's talking about when Ruud Hullett come into training and he got all the defenders together and he got one of the wingers or something and they popped the ball off to him, like smashed a 30-yard pass. He killed it on his chest, sprayed it 40 yards to the end of the pitch. And he went, and that's what I want you to do. And Steve Howie just said, they all looked at each other and then they looked at him and they went, we can't do that. He went, you're fucking Ruud Hullett. That's why you can do that. So brilliant. He's got some cracking stories. Yeah, I'd love
one of them was the best player in the world at one time. And
exactly.
It was Steve Howie, yeah.
It wasn't Steve Howie, unfortunately, mate. No, absolutely not. But we'll get stuck in with my lineup here, lads. So there will be some similarities here. Certainly at the back, as you can see there, talking about my team. Again, it's a full house for Nick Pope. There's no other real choice, as you say, Audie. I've included Kieran Trippier. I toyed with the idea of, believe it or not, right, sticking Kieran Dyer as a wing back, because I remember when he played against Luxembourg in that position, he was absolutely electric. And he played very well for England, did Dyer, so I nearly did that. But I resisted temptation. I went with Trippier. My back two is the same as yours, Audie, Woodgate and Campbell. Believe it or not, criminally, Woodgate only got 8 caps for England. Can you believe it? That shows you how injured he was.
Yeah, I was going to say, never fit.
Player. No, 73 for Campbell. But I think Woodgate, you're right, Audie. I'm from a similar timeline, mate, as well. I remember seeing that lad playing as class as Botman has been since he's come in. Woodgate's the best centre-half I've ever seen play for Newcastle United. His reading of the game, and anyone who can make Titus Bramble look like a half-decent footballer deserves a gold medal, to be honest with you. Again, we've got a full house with Psycho at left-back, Piers, 78 caps and 5 goals. Capable of a thunder bastard as well, which was brilliant. So moving into my midfield, I'll get your take on this when I'm done, Audie, but I had to pick my favourite player growing up. Shows you how crap positions I played. David Batty, just sitting there. I've gone for a little bit of defensive solidity with my team, just in case those mad bastards up front lose the ball. I've got Batty sitting there to half somebody and stand on the hand as he walks past them. But going into midfield, I've got Chrissy Waddle to the left. Phenomenal player for England, no doubt about that. Very good for Newcastle. It was a little bit before my time, but very, very good player. He buggered off to pastures new by the time I'd picked up the black and white. Beardsley just behind the front two. Gaza out wide. Gaza's just, I think we've said it, lads, phenomenal footballer. Probably the most talented footballer this club has ever produced and arguably will ever produce, unless we get, some real investment in the academy. And up front, I've gone for the two beasts in Shearer and Ferdinand. I also resisted the Michael Owen temptation, Audie. I nearly did it, mate.
I'm proud of you, Chris.
Yeah,
I'm proud of you.
Exactly. So that's my team, lads. A little bit more balanced. What's your thoughts on it?
Again, there's a lot of picks there that are sort of shoe-ins, as we mentioned. Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, obviously. Already didn't go for Kieran Trippier, but Shearer again, Gaza, Beardsley, Waddle. That lot really sort of picks itself, and so you can't really argue again.
Absolutely.
Do you know who none of us have picked? None of us have picked King Kev.
Well, actually, hang on, because we've got Mark's team in a minute. Dan's going to have to leave us, I think, in a minute. Is the
I'll be honest. I'll stay for Mark's team. So
stay for Mark's team.
The only thing sorry, Chris. The only thing I was going to mention was David Batty in France '98 and missing the penalty that sent us home. Paul Ince gets a lot of stick for that, but it's David Batty. Quickly, Kevin, will he score? Yes, misses. But David Batty, really, really good player. But it's hard. It's sometimes hard, I think, to judge David Batty because we were absolutely flying in the league when David Batty arrived. And his arrival, although he scored, didn't he score against was it Blackburn? In the game got 2-1.
Lovely side footer, I think, into the far corner, I think, mate. So.
But yeah, very good footballer, David Batty, and it had certain skills. But I don't know. A lot of people blame Tino for us not winning the league in '96.
You blame Batty?
Well, I listened to Lee Clark at a talking, and to be fair, he'd had a bit of a drink beforehand, but he made the point that Keegan was desperate for teams to go forwards, and Batty always wanted the team to go sideways.
Yeah. I mean, I think I could see why maybe Keegan listened to somebody else and got him in, but Roger's right. Batty would be a busy boy in that team. Absolutely. We'll grab Mark's team, but even though he's not here, Dan has to dive off. I think he's got very important responsibilities tonight, Dan. I won't say what they are, mate. I'm not going to embarrass you. Good responsibilities. So this is Mark's team, and again, I'll talk through Mark's team. An absolute belter. I know. He's just for the rap alone, Dan. Really, but he's got Mark's gone Nick Pope again, full house for Popey. 3 at the back. He's gone for Sanson, Woodgate, Trippier. Trippier is a centre half. Very interesting, Mark. Nicky Butt. Now we'll get his England stats in a minute with me and Audie when Dan has to show off. Bobby Lee's in there as well. Gaza, Beardsley, John Barnes. You got to hold and give and do it at the right time. The main man. And he's got Shearer and KK up front, lads. I mean, that's not a bad side, is it?
It's not a bad side. I mean, with Keegan, I think obviously we've just mentioned David Batty's miss. Keegan had an equally bad one, well, not from a penalty, but in open play in Spain, 82.
Yeah, Mr. Header, didn't he?
Yeah, which if that goes in, England could be on the way of qualifying to, I think was the semi-final.
KK, 63 caps, 21 goals. Not too bad.
Wasn't Dan, that one you just mentioned, Spain 82. I'm sure Keegan went and he wasn't fit, and I think he'd had a bad back or something and couldn't play. I think it was something about him. I can't remember what the exact story was, but something had happened and he'd had a bad back, and I think he missed the first 2 group games, and he was so desperate to try and get England through the group that he nagged to get on, because because he just loved playing for England. Like,
was he playing for us by then, or because he signed for us?
he
in
signed
82?
that summer for us. He signed for us from Southampton that summer for us.
Yeah.
Because I think he'd done 2 years at Southampton after leaving Hamburg. And I think they just finished. I think they just finished third or fourth. I think it was the highest ever finished in the first division. And then he made the strange decision to come down to play in the second division for us.
Hey, fair play. He was a bloody hero for that, man. You know that Michael Owen could have learned a lesson. If Michael Owen had come and played for us in the Championship and goes back to the Premier League, he would have saved his entire reputation, in my opinion. But Roger's saying 4 belter teams. To be fair, I mean, I think we've got some good options in there. I mean, going back to kind of some of the name picks. Dan, do you need to shoot, mate? Do you want to dive off?
I will have to dash, but thank you, lads, as always.
No worries.
Nice to see
That's
you,
your
Dan.
bedtime anyway, young man. Get yourself to bed.
Obviously, yeah. I'm sure all of those teams would, do well in an international tournament.
Absolutely, Dan. Right, cracking, mate. We'll catch you in a bit, buddy. Cheers, man. Appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, Mark's saying in the comments that it was a back injury order. You're right. It's a funny one because I think you're looking at the list of players that we've all picked, and I think it's only Owen and Keegan who were Ballon d'Or winners out of all them, wasn't it? Really? If you think
I think also, I think it's interesting. I think we mentioned before we started, but Mark's obviously picked Nicky Butt, who Pele put in his. Pele said was the best player in the England squad before the quarter-final, and he got him in the team of the tournament for the World Cup. He did have, I think Owen Hargreaves kind of took over Nicky Butt's mantle in that England side for a period.
I thought Hargreaves was shite, I know that's controversial. I didn't think Hargreaves was that good of a player. He's made out of bloody glass as well for a defensive midfielder. Fucking injured every 2 weeks, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I think the other thing with Hargreaves was that it was a bit of a strange one, wasn't it? He was a Canadian German playing for Bayern Munich who was eligible for England, and like that in itself, like we're going to take this a bit of like what's the lad called for Bayern Munich at the moment who's playing for Germany, Musiala, Jamal Musiala. Yeah. Like, so he was in the same situation where he could have picked England, he could have picked Germany, and there's this idea we'd nicked him off the Germans. But he went into the midfield, and I think was he not the person who thought was going to solve the Gerard Lampard problem? So that you could potentially play both of them in midfield. I
think they did, yeah. I mean, I think one of England's biggest travesties really was the whole Scholes fiasco. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, that was such bad management by, I think it was Sven, wasn't it, really? So, Mark's saying, not controversial, Hargreaves was poor. And he's dull as dishwater as a pundit as well. He really
he's not enjoyable.
Mate, I've got to mute him. It's when he calls them all by the little nicknames. He calls Rio Ferdinand Ree. So Rio's too long to say. You call him Ree instead. Honestly, he's such a wank. He really is. But I mean, looking at those players, I mean, we said there's some honourable mentions. Obviously, I mean, Kieran Dyer did well for England. Jermaine Genius did well for England as well. I know didn't have great memories was when he left, but 2 decent midfielders there, mate, and in a golden generation as well. They made some caps, didn't they? Got some appearances.
Yeah, I mean, Jermaine Genius has already said that he had to step down to do Champions League training with Newcastle after training with England and the Liverpool boys and stuff like that. But Genius, to be honest, Kieran Dyer, you mentioned that Luxembourg game, I think won 6-1 or 6-0.
Outstanding.
Yeah, Dyer looked outstanding. And that was not long after he joined us. That was 1999. And I think actually Keegan might have been manager of England at the time. And there's an argument to say that Kieran Dyer would have got loads more caps. I seem to recall Kieran Dyer getting injured on the last day of the season and missing out in the 2002 World Cup because he pulled his hamstring against Southampton and then didn't go.
He had that pace, and players with pace like that are always liable to do that. I mean, you look at Miggy. I mean, Miggy must be made of fucking rubber or something because he doesn't pull any hamstrings, touch wood. He's got that electric pace, but a lot of those players do, don't they? They pull and they tweak and everything. It's just mental, isn't it?
I think it's a bit like Callum Wilson. Like if you look at Wilson, he often and Maximan actually it's sometimes a change of pace. I was watching Kylian Mbappe.
Quick burst.
Yeah. I was watching Mbappe last night.
How good was he, man?
There was one. Right, I think it's for the 4th goal.
Is it a back heel?
He stops, knocks it, goes full pelt. The defender's 2 yards behind him, so he stops again, lets the defender catch up with him, and then beats him again, from a standing start. And that's preposterous. Yeah, you're just basically ruining this lad's career by saying, I can beat you once, I can beat you twice, I can beat you 3 times if I want.
Beat you 3 times a lady. Job done.
Yeah.
I know. But he got that pace. I mean, we said this about we're talking about Grant Qual, weren't we, I think, on the podcast a few months ago. And, he come on, he obviously couldn't really do much. Australia well beaten by them, but he's got that turn of speed. If he can develop that as well, who knows what player that he could be. We were talking about Dan James for Wales, weren't we? You need something more with speed because Dan James, even playing for Wales, Dan James has that speed, but he hasn't got any brain as a footballer. So Wales were poor with him the other night, even though he had that pace to get in behind because he was just running in a bloody blind alleys, wasn't he?
Yeah, they just couldn't get the ball. Friend of the pod, Di Reese.
Yeah, he was over there. Di was there.
Yeah, he was in the game. Yeah, and I was texting him at half time, and he said that I'd said exactly what the Welsh fans were discussing amongst themselves, that they just needed Kiefer Moore because they need to get a hold of the ball because the US had all of the ball. It'll be an interesting one to see if we end up in a situation where Kane's ankle is a bit dodgy, because do we risk him against the US, or does our boy Callum get a start for England? He couldn't have done much more to bolster his case in the time he was on than make that break and then square it really unselfishly to Jack Grealish.
Did you not think he was going to shoot? I thought he was going to shoot, as soon as he got
I thought when he got in, that's like, this is it. He's going to show how good he is.
Yeah.
But actually, for Southgate and the team mentality, he probably showed more for him there. I mean, it was a pity it was Jack Grealish on the other end. I bet Miggy was screaming shoot. But
texting him. Would you pass to him forward?
You do that again, and I'm not passing to you.
Exactly.
But I've got to say, someone else who just came to my mind, Chris, who none of us have mentioned, James Milner.
I was just thinking about Milner earlier on. Milner got quite a few caps, didn't he, Milner?
Yeah, I think he must have done all right. And obviously, the career he went on to have after Graham Souness said you can't win the league with 11 James Milners. He's gone on to have an unbelievable career. Again, probably his versatility did for him with England because he could play in so many different positions that people couldn't nail him down to one.
61 caps. 61 caps. That's good, that.
That is good going. That's more than I thought. That's a lot more than I thought.
A lot of friendlies will be in there, though, imagine. A lot of friendlies against, an Aldi Select 11 from Liechtenstein or something like that. So.
Yeah. A couple of other people could have mentioned Joey Barton.
Yep. One cap for Joey, one cap wonder.
One cap Alan Smith, one cap, one goal, I think.
Smith.
He was... and the other... Well, sorry, one cup, one goal while he's with us, I think. And the other one I was going to say was the man who scored at Euro 2012 just after he'd left us, but was Andrew Carroll. We didn't mention him.
Big AC. AC, mate.
His England career was very much stop-start. But I suppose it'd be a different question if you're doing a Geordie 11 as opposed to another one. Rogers just said in the comments there, Lee Clark. But Lee Clark play for him?
This. No, he only got under 21 caps, Roger. Me and Mark spoke about this before he got struck down with a man flu. I'll tell you a player who we didn't pick. One cap he got in 2006, Scott Parker. Scott Parker's another one. One cap wonder.
Did Alan Thompson not play for England?
No, I don't think Tomo got a cap, mate.
I thought he played 45 minutes in a friendly under Sven.
Mark
that was going to be the solution when he was at Celtic. I thought that could be wrong about that. Alan Thompson.
How about Barry Venison? Barry Venison, 2 caps between 94 and 95.
Eltel took him, didn't he?
Yeah. Mark's in there, Warren Barton and Venison. Yeah, Eltel, he did. Yeah, probably just because he loved his hair, I think.
Warren Barton at the Umbro tournament. Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Warren Barton and Venison both picked by the same manager, surely just for their hair. But yeah, no, it's two.
Here's two. No, here's two. Andros Townsend and John Joe Shelby. And pick either one of them to either.
I couldn't. Oh, Mark says Tomo did get a cap.
He did get one cap. Mark will know because he loves Tomo.
God, John Joe Shelby.
Shelby.
I've got to be honest, Chris, I draw the line at that.
You draw the line. Well, you're going to draw the line massively this one. Here's some brilliant one cap wonders, right? This bloke, there's two blokes here, I think, got the most Scottish names I've ever heard for England capped players at Newcastle United. So in 1911, Tadger Stewart got 1 cap. Tadger Stewart. And then Tadger Stewart. And then in 1904 to 1908, he got 11 caps. Jock Rutherford.
I think I've read the book. I think it's Paul Juno's book, the number 9s. I think Jock Rutherford was one of the first proper heroes of the number 9 shirts. I think there was someone just before him, and then Rutherford was the one who made the number 9 shirt kind of his own. But yeah, God, I mean, we could probably there probably are some people who we've forgotten. There are probably some quite obvious ones we've forgotten, like that we don't think about because we hate them because they left us.
God stand them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I suppose looking at some of our other players just before we sign off already. What's this? Roger's saying, what about Angus? What about Angus? Who was Angus? Straight look there. Who was Angus? Angus. Got Angus there. Just looking at this big list here, Roger. You could give us an insight, mate. But look at some of the other players that we have. I think we spoke about this on some Evermores. I mean, one player screams out to me. I'm looking at players like Conor Gallagher, wondering why he's there. Even Mason Mount, to be honest with you. And Joe Willock, I think the performances Joe Willock's put in this season and his age as well. I mean, I think Southgate's on his bike no matter what happens, hell or high water after this tournament. Do you think a new manager, a change of manager, gives Joe Willock a sniff? Because he surely deserves a chance at a friendly or something, mate, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would say, well, it depends because there's less friendlies these days, isn't there, with the Nations League and the idea that we've got to be playing more competitive football all of the time. Probably the biggest thing probably the hardest thing, sorry, I should say, not the biggest thing, probably the hardest thing for Willock is like we've got to keep up our form because that keeps him in the picture. But also,
if we finish top four, and Eddie Howe's manager of the season and loads of his teammates are in team of the season, surely he's knocking on the door then, isn't he?
Well, I think there's other people as well who you've got to consider. Like, is this a dust tournament for Jordan Henderson? It probably is.
I think so, possibly.
Is it the case that actually there's quite a few people who maybe looking to move on from? The only other thing I would say for Willock is the lad who's come in and started the tournament straight away, and Jude Bellingham. Paul Carter's a massive fan, but
huge player.
Like I honestly think Jude Bellingham, like he's been so good to start the tournament that he almost picks himself now for the games going forward. I do think if we beat the US, there might be a bit of revolving for the Wales game, depending on the Wales-Iran result.
Possibly,
and that might say a Gallagher or a Mount like get more of a run out.
Maybe Madison if he's fit as well. It'd be good to see what Madison can do this World Cup. We're linked to him all the time, so. Madison. I'm interested to see how Madison takes to this stage because if he steps up, the only problem is if he steps up and does well, does it add more to his transfer fee in January?
I suppose there's a weird one here, and that Madison's gone probably because of the clamour from the public, and Southgate's kind of answered his critics by starting Saka and Sterling, and then when he had to make a change, putting on Foden and Grealish. Now.
But Madison was knackered though, wasn't he? He wasn't fit, was he? But no, interested to see when he is fit.
Yeah. But if he's not fit for the US game, then that's another game where if he wants to make changes, he's got those 4 available to him again, and then he goes into that Wales game where he could make changes. I don't know. Southgate's pretty risk averse. I doubt he would start him, but he might give him 20-30 minutes if he knows we've definitely qualified. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens to top in that group as well, because that Netherlands-Senegal game, where Netherlands scored twice late on, Senegal, I think, played better than a lot of people expected, even without Sadio Mane. So it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Massively missing him. What a blow that is for them. Yeah, Roger's saying Bellingham top quality, almost higher than the rest of the team bar trips. I love that. Just to why the Liverpool fans were hilarious, man, on social media. Yeah, how can you drop a generational talent, Trent Alexander-Arnold? And it was just literally just reams of replies. He can't defend. He can't defend. He can't defend. It was like, Bart Simpson when he writes on the bloody board. It was like, he can't defend. He can't defend. I just thought, what are these bloody scousers looking at, man? Honestly, but looking at some of the other players as well, I'm excited to see if Bruno gets a sniff for Brazil against Serbia. Is Mitrovic injured or is he fit in that game?
I think they're saying he's fit.
He's fit.
I think they're saying.
What do you think? Bruno will get a chance, mate, or do you think he'll be on the bench? What do you think?
I think he'll probably be on the bench because the team that they put out, the team that Brazil's tend to put out tends to hold back a little bit in midfield. So I think
Fred and Casemiro in it that sit as the two.
Yeah, and then you've got Fabinho who also comes in. So he's in the mix. I mean. Yeah, personally, if you're asking me, would I have him or Fred? Well, I'd have him over Fred every single time.
100%.
But a bit like when we've just looked at our teams, just before, when we've just looked at our teams, the way in which Brazil attack means that people have got to play a bit of a different role. He's not going to be playing box to box if he's in that Fred role. So, it'd be interesting to see. Though, obviously, with Casemiro next to him, that would be really interesting to see because we've been saying, I think, on this pod, and lots of Newcastle fans that have been thinking it, that the gap for Newcastle at the moment is how do you support Bruno moving out of that role of being the holding defensive midfielder?
Yeah, who do you need next to him to sit back? I think Mexico drew with Poland, didn't they? I didn't get to see how Alvarez played. He's someone who's been linked to us a lot. He's like a proper number 6 or number 4, as PK keeps referring to it as.
Yeah.
I think that's the player that, as much as I'd love Maddison, and as much as I'd love Diaby, and guys like that, and even we've been linked to Marcus Thuram as a centre forward. 8 million quid you can get him for in January. That's business, that, by the way. Wow. But we do need a whole midfield, in my opinion. I agree with you. I don't think Longstaff's up for the job. I think he's already showed that. I don't think definitely Shelby's not up for the job either. So we do need a player like that. Just Boxers there said he feels like Saka's going to be one of the best players of this World Cup. I agree. I think Saka and Bellingham, as you say. What I loved about Bellingham, he didn't half link up well with Wilson, did he, mate? That was quite exciting to see that, mind you.
Well, it's also interesting because I don't know what the situation is. I don't think any of us do. We're just guessing, but it always seems to be mentioned that it's only Liverpool, Man City, or Real Madrid who are in for Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
But if Liverpool don't get into the Champions League, then they don't know how much investment they've got because FSG maybe haven't sold them or haven't sold the investment stake.
Yeah.
Is he going to go to Man City and do what the likes of Phillips, etc., have done, which is go in and sit on the bench,
not get a game,
and maybe be in and out the team? Or could a Dan Ashworth go over there and say, look, we'll guarantee your starting spot.
Build the team around you. We'll build the team around you.
You've already got players around you who can, like in a midfield, who we can kick on with, but we're going to add more. You'd be part of a project. It's a classic opportunity to do it. Now, the only problem's going to be is that I don't know where we are with FFP, and his transfer fee, if it's what it's believed to be, is supposedly going to be 140, 150 million quid.
It's interesting because Mark we had this conversation on What's Going On Monday. That I'm going to bring another lad in here, Declan Rice, because Declan Rice has forever been linked to Manchester United, been linked to Chelsea, been linked to Liverpool, and all these other teams, as you rightly say, because they're the so-called big teams. But we've shot right up there now. These lads have seen what's getting built there. They've seen what Eddie Howe's like. They're talking to their England teammates. I bet you over there, Rice will be talking to Wilson. He'll be talking to Trippier, going, "What's it like to play for him?" And they'll be going, "It's fucking unbelievable, mate. Honestly, training and everything. He gets you up, and look what he's done to Joe Little. Look what he's done to Miggy." And they'll be thinking, "Fucking hell, that might be something I'm interested in." But as Mark said, Rice would be 150 million quid or something. But because Bellingham's coming from the Bundesliga, a bit like Haaland, I think the fee's actually lower. I think Mark was saying the fee's going to be near about 60 million quid, 70 million quid, or something like that. I mean,
that's a bargain if that happens. And for me, that's a bargain. Like,
it's got to be.
But I think the Haaland thing, what we've got to remember is he had that clause, didn't he? In his contract, which meant
in there on purpose, wasn't it? So he could move on. I think he always wanted that City move, Haaland, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because of his
Madrid.
legacy and his dad. Or Madrid, yeah. It would have been really interesting if Mbappe had gone to Madrid and Haaland had gone to Barca. That would have been really, really interesting. Yeah. Part of me doesn't like the fact that didn't happen as a football fan. Boxers saying if we make the final, who do you think Southgate will play in goal? Do you want to take that one, Audie? Who do you think?
I think unfortunately it'd be Jordan Pickford.
I think he loves Jordan Pickford, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he just thinks Pickford. He obviously likes goalkeepers who talk to themselves randomly during games, and I've got to say, and this might be Pickford doesn't normally get tested until the big games, and then he normally puts in an unbelievable performance. While if you watch him at Everton, normally when their defense is having the shocker, Pickford has an unbelievable blinder. He seems to have brilliant games when the defenders in front of him are looking poor. I'd also say that it's difficult, isn't it? Pope made that error against Germany, and if he doesn't make that error and England go on and win that game, there'd be an argument for saying Pope's got the shirt. Pickford needs to get it off him. The problem is he did make that error, and I think probably, even though we might not like it, in the back of people's minds, and certainly in the back of Gareth Southgate's mind, there's that, he might make that error. Having said that, he's in this squad. There's also Aaron Ramsdale, who has had a really good season at Arsenal.
Brilliant keeper.
But I think he'll go with Pickford. I think he likes Pickford's distribution. I think he likes the fact that he barks at his defenders and he doesn't let them just move around. Although I've got to say, I'll hold my hands up. 6-8 months ago, I was saying, well, do we really need that big an improvement on Dubravka? And what an improvement he's been.
Oh yeah,
he's answered.
He's answered that question emphatically, but as you rightly say, old Dubravka kicking his heels up. I mean, it's an argument not worth having, actually, because England will not get the final anyway, to be fair. So that's not me putting me Scottish blinkers on. It's to be fair, Jimmy's late to the party. You'll have to go back and watch from the start, Jimmy. Good to see you, but I think the way the draw works, I think obviously England, I think they'll win the group anyway. I really do. Get through. They're either going to have Senegal or the Netherlands to play. Netherlands don't look all that great, to be fair, but they're always capable of something. But then after that, I think England end up with France. And I think once you get to France, lights out, really. I can't see England beating France, mate.
Yeah, I think they've been the most impressive team of the tournament so far.
Definitely.
And
superb.
I think there's been a few shocks which are going to throw the groups round a little bit different.
You're right. It's going to play some games with the groups, isn't it, mate? Yeah, you're right. Oh,
excuse me, mate. Sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, but Germany losing to Japan, obviously the knock-on effect of that. What does that do to that group? If
Saudis beating Argentina.
Exactly. What does that do? I still think Argentina will get out of the group, but what does that do with where they finished? Does that mean they finish second now rather than first? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with each of these different groups. Some of them, I don't think it'll make any difference. I think England's beating Iran, Wales, USA. Well, I think that probably proves the point that I think we've made a couple of times on this. Is just England will probably win the group, and then it's between USA and Wales for second place. And Iran did all right towards the back end, but England had made so many changes by then that even though Southgate was angry about them conceding, I felt that maybe that was a bit misplaced because we were scoring goals for fun pretty much every time we went forward. But yeah, you want to cut that out. So yeah,
there's plenty of good football, I'm sure, still to be seen in this World Cup. But then obviously we'll be chopped at the bit to get Newcastle United back. So that's just pretty much wrapped up for the night, guys. Thank you so much to everybody who's joining the comments. We really appreciate it. Always helps it flow. Hope you enjoyed our England teams. Feel free to like the video and drop a comment for your England team underneath in there. We'll try and reply back to you. As I said at the start, if you're new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing and help us get to that 2,100 milestone. We're quite close. We're about 40 or 30 odd away. Recommend us to your friends. Why not? Check it out. Plenty of Newcastle United banter here just to keep you entertained before we're waiting for the lads to come back. And I'll probably be back up with another couple of post videos. We've got some Rumour Has It videos coming up as well. Yeah, good to see you too, Boxer Brennan. Thanks, mate. So we've got some Rumour Has It videos coming up. They've been linked to loads of players. I think we'll be linked to loads more. We've got What's the Crack with that, which we like to have a bit of fun with and throw that in. And then obviously before you know, we'll be back doing the normal Evermore podcast. So from me and Pep Guardiola, we're going to sign off and we'll let you get back to watching the World Cup. And we'll catch you later. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.